And so this is a talk on ambassadors as advocates organizing events, which is a really important topic. And so we have three amazing people. We have Danson, Renata Rapyo, and Kah Hui Teo. So first off, let's start with Dan because you're on my side here. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yep, I would love to. Yep. Hi everyone. My name's Dan, and I'm dialing in from Hong Kong. It's 8:30 in the evening. I'm a people program manager with Riot Games Hong Kong and Singapore studio, and I'm very passionate about connecting women within and beyond the Riot Games, our studio. So I'm also the founder of W Coffee. You can see the head doing a bit of branding here. That it's a women in games virtual meetup that we meet up monthly, and we already did 14 of them. And yeah, Kah Hui here is my partner in crime. There are some nice story to share in a bit. But then I'm very, very happy to meet all of you. And also, I'm really happy that I was reached out because Kah Hui and myself are the only two person that are in from Asia. I just want to say that there are lots of passionate women, lots of passionate ambassadors on the other side of the world. And let's get them in.
Thank you so much. And as you tagged Kah Hui, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Kah Hui, dialing in from Singapore. Well, 8:31 p.m. I'm with Keyword Studios as a global localization manager. I work on bringing games across cultures and languages. So for me, I joined as an ambassador around 7 months ago, and soon after I was onboarded, then reached out to me, and then the rest is history. Now we are partnering on hosting the monthly W Coffee session for women in games across APAC. Yeah.
Okay, and Renata.
Hi everyone. I guess I'm on the other side of the globe. I'm in São Paulo, Brazil. It's 9:32 a.m. here. I've been working with games for 3 or 4 years now, and I used to work as a game designer for mobile products, and now I work as a game producer for, I guess, 2 indie games for also computer and other platforms. And this is what I do to pay the bills. And voluntarily, I work at Women Game Jam. It's a game jam for women only that started in Brazil and went a little bit bigger. We'll tell a little bit more about it further on.
Brilliant. So just to say to everyone that if you have questions for this amazing panel, you can drop them in the Q&A session tab, and hopefully at the end we might have time for some questions. So fingers crossed for that. So we're going to start at the first question, the biggest question. How did you enter the industry? And I'm going to go to Kah first because your story still blows my mind.
Well, I was from a engineering background. I have a degree in chemical engineering with a minor in law, so it has got nothing to do with games. I'm not even a gamer to begin with. But I think after around 9 to 10 years of being an engineer, I wanted to do something more meaningful with my life. And I decided to become a translator, a freelance translator. I quit my job. I sat at home. I started getting freelance jobs translating on hospitality, insurance. And then 1 week into my freelance life, I was called up by a game publisher to go for an interview for their position. I didn't know who they were because when they called me, I didn't know the company. I Googled, I thought it was an advertising company. Okay, so I went for the interview. They onboarded me in 2 weeks, and that's how I joined Electronic Arts by accident. And then I was given titles, like I was working on titles like Battlefield. I did FIFA, NBA, even some of the EA Partners titles. So it was an amazing experience that happened accidentally out of the blue, and I didn't even apply for the job. So that was the funniest thing ever to happen to me. And I wasn't even a gamer when I started. The first game I had to play because I was working on it was Command and Conquer. Until today, I still remember that. Yes, that's my story for you.
Amazing. Yeah, getting offered a job when you didn't even apply and it turns out to be your dream job is just amazing. What about you, Dan? How did you get into the industry?
I don't know if my experience was more random. So before I joined the game industry, I live in Europe for a few years, to be exactly in Berlin, and I changed several jobs. I didn't like them. So one day I just decided that I will not care what company I work for, where I go, but I want to do the thing I'm passionate about. Back then it was digital marketing. And then I searched this keyword, and then this company popped up. I applied for it. They took me, and then it happened to be a gaming company. After like several months in there, and then Riot Games found me, and then I'm with Riot in the past 6 or 7 years. But then to this point, I just simply cannot imagine I will work for any other industry from now on. So it's just as random as Kah Hui's story.
Fantastic. And Renata, are you random too?
Definitely. I started studying business and administration. I dropped out of 2 years because it's like, no, financial market, definitely not my thing. Decided to go into advertisement and marketing because I was like, well, maybe it will be more. Graduated in it, tried all the three versions of communication, working on a video call, working with clients, or working on agencies. I still didn't like my job. Went to startups, a little bit better, but still wasn't as happy. And a friend popped out to me and was like, hey, there's this pod at this company I'm working at, and it's for a system economy designer. I was like, what's that? And she explained it to me that it involved like creating mathematical projections and thinking about features and how to add experience into it and how to create an economy within the games. And I was like, can you work doing that? And she said, yeah, that's an actual job position. And I applied for this job. I did the whole process, and I entered this company, Taps Games. I stayed there for about 2 years, ended up going out because we had a bit of a depression here in Brazil, and entered AB InBev. It's like a beer company. They're worldwide, but I was very unhappy because working with games was something that made me go to work excited every day. And I guess it was like 5 months in this last job when Rogue approached me, because they are from like people that are friends of friends. They even reached out to me on WhatsApp and say, hey, are you happy with your job? I'm like, not as much. I say, would you like to talk to us for an interview? Yeah, wow, why not? And then we went into a more formal way and started talking by email to schedule things. And a couple months later, I started working with them, and I guess I haven't been happier. Like, because they've been telling meaningful stories with the games and working with an amazing team.
Astounding. I mean, that's the dream for everyone, is it? To be headhunted, for someone to say, I've seen you, you do good work, we want to give you an amazing job. That's so. It sounds like all of you definitely had to take a major leap of faith and push yourself outside of your comfort zone. Is that something that's quite important, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. When I decide to, from now on, I only want to work on the things I'm passionate about. The very first job I landed at, I almost get paid negative because the pay doesn't cover the rent. But then I'm very happy that eventually it pays out.
Yeah, I think for me, at first when I joined the game industry, I don't know a lot of things. Even if you give me a controller, I don't know whether it belongs to Xbox or PlayStation. That's how sad I was. And then by the time I was my years in EA, I went from international project manager to running the Asia testing and localization teams. And then I have to be, I have people on my team that does compliance QA, first party QA and all that. And I have to learn all the rules and everything. But it was a great learning experience because for me, it was delivering a form of entertainment. And when we do localization, is helping people that is about accessibility, is helping people that like subtitles, in games for the cutscenes to help people with hearing issues. You help them to be able to access and enjoy that content. So for me, it brings greater meaning to me. So like Renata said, it makes me want to go to work every day. It's very tough. The industry burns people out. There are crunch times. Crunch times are crazy. But then it motivates me because the next day when I wake up, refresh, recharge, I want to go to work again. And that I didn't have when I was an engineer.
That is so important. What about you, Renata? Did your decision to join the games industry, was that a leap of faith, or did you just know that that was the right thing to do?
Yeah, definitely a leap of faith. I hadn't been with numbers for like 4 years because like studying calculus was like fast. I was just a spreadsheet lover because I like spreadsheets and I do things in my life with spreadsheets. It was like, maybe I can do this, but I'm not that sure because most of the people that they usually work for this position are mathematicians or engineers or people with a background towards I forgot the name, exacts, like humans, exacts, and biologics. So I would definitely not fall into that trait, but I was like, nah, I'm gonna give it a try. So I think this leap of faith is very important. May I add a hook to the event that I'm organizing here?
Yes, well, I'm actually just a way to ask you, because this is about ambassadors organizing events, for you to introduce the events that you've been organizing. So Renata, go you on.
Okay, so I think it was like late 2018. I had been working with games for a couple months, and I participated in Women Game Jam, the second edition. It was this event for women only that happened throughout Brazil. I think it was in 8 different cities, and it was a life changer for me because there I met a bunch of other women that worked with games, and not only from São Paulo but in other places too, because we had this Discord server, so I could connect with friends from other parts of the country. And I did a game called Coming Out Simulator. And this game helped me win a scholarship by Microsoft to go to GDC the next year.
Wow.
And as a producer and a game designer, I was also invited by the main organizer of the event to start organizing the event. And I was like, okay, I like this idea. I would love to do it, but can I make it bigger? Because I think this is bigger than us. And she said, sure, go ahead, but it's your work to do. And I said, okay, let's do it. And I went to GDC. I spoke at a couple panels for community organizers, for women in games. There I met Jennifer Shirley and some other people that started organizing the event here in Latin America. So like it was because it allowed me to connect with a bunch of people to create a game that I'm extremely proud of. That, well, for a small indie game, it has been played at Sony.io for 1,500 people, more or less.
Wow.
And it tells a very personal story for me about like being able to be comfortable with who you are. And that's something we try to give the women at Women Game Jam space to do. To be in a place they can be unafraid to ask questions and say, I don't know what's a runner, what's a shooter, and they can come in and we're gonna embrace them and teach them then it's okay not to know things. And that it's safe and we want everyone to learn and to grow with it. Like this year, we're having Australia join us. We're having Zambia join us as well. So we're going to Oceania in Africa. Hopefully, you ladies, Dansan and Kah Hui will join us at some time. We'll start to go to Asia too, because we aim to do this event as bigger as we can to create this safe environment for everyone.
Absolutely, just fantastic and so important, giving people that safe space and the freedom to ask a question without fear of someone pointing at you and going, "No, stupid," because you learn by asking questions. Dan, what about you? Do you want to talk a bit about the kind of events that you've been running?
Yep, I think a lot of element Renata just mentioned. But for us, I think very important, what we're trying to do is, first of all, we want to build a community that lasts and that sustains, because we can share a bit later that it could be quite exhausting that if you take everything on your own and without relying on the community. I think another one I also want to point out is that we want to absolutely bring in the Asia perspective, because if you look at EU, you have amazing WIGJ, and of course in the US they have their gaming association, but when you look at Asia, it's just completely blank. So a lot of work I do is, first of all, build a community, and second of all, it's just really build infrastructure. You set the structure so people like Kah Hui, the future amazing hosts, when they come join us, they can just plug in and play the role. Yeah. But then, yes, so yeah, we've been doing this for 1.5 years, and I feel like finally, for the very first time, I can take a breath. So for people like Kah Hui can, take on the bat and continue the marathon.
Fantastic. And Kah, what about you?
I think when I first became an ambassador, I was also a bit lost. If Dan haven't found me, I would have taken way longer to organize that event, but I built on top of what she has established. There are some practical aspects, like how do we find audience, people that wants to come. So I have to get out of my comfort zone, look for people that I work with, not only within my company, but outside of them, or outside, and the women that I work with, suddenly making cold calls, say, hi, remember me, with this event, would you like to join Friday morning, and try to get them interested. And it is very tough in certain Asian region, because when women join such events, they may be perceived negatively and judged by their male counterparts for being a feminist. Being a feminist in some parts of Asia is not a positive aspect, they are. And so some of women try not to be too prominent, even if they join this type of event. So we also discuss about how do we, publish it? How do we get people to like us on LinkedIn? Because their colleague obviously can see them liking our posts on LinkedIn. Then we have to try to reach out to companies through their HR, to any contacts we have to get people to sign up. So then build website, we have a LinkedIn page, and then next thing is, whenever we have events, we have to do a write-up, like tell people the next session what we're going to discuss. Of course, the discussion is not like you have to come fully prepared with homework, but at least you get an idea where the next coffee session is going to discuss about. And then we bounce ideas off each other. So sometimes I'm thinking about this, and then we'll bring a perspective, and then we have a more 360 view about what we want to discuss. The thing is writing up the event, because not all of us are good writers. I don't mind writing a dissertation, but writing that post is so traumatizing to me. I start doubting my grammar. I was thinking, am I marketing enough? Like, is it interesting enough? Or do I sound as boring as a encyclopedia passage, So there are all these little things, making that all the styles of what we write seems like it is written by the same person, though we do take turns among all of us to do it. And these are some of the challenges we have doing that. But then it makes me learn a lot in the sense that I stretch myself to try to write those posts. We think about topics, then did presentation. So we even now have the PowerPoint template to use. So little things like that, we improve a little bit for every session that we did.
So what I'm picking up from all three of you is that there's a real sort of collegial attitude. So it's everyone is in it together. There's not like a hierarchy of I'm the boss and I'll do, you do what I say, and almost that you can learn from anyone and everyone. Is that right?
I think for me, one of the most biggest takeaway from that session was I met up with a lot of younger women in the industry. And then for us, we are more in the games development or working in the background on the game production side. And I got to know one of the ladies that came from esports. So she brought a very different perspective because esports is high profile type of role. You play, people judge how you look, how you dress, how you play, so they face a different type of pressure that we have never faced in our life. And when she spoke about it, and she was only in her early 20s, I was thinking, oh my God, when I was her age, I didn't even have half her confidence standing up there. We did an online session. We were in person, but it was streamed live. And I was so impressed with her. I invited her to one of the session. And this is something that I wanted to show is not only about younger entrants to the industry that learn from the veterans or the more senior people. I learn from the young people as much as I learn from my peers, as well as very experienced ladies in the industry who opened this path for us to make it possible for women to be in games.
100%, absolutely. Does anyone else have anything to add to that, sort of creating the idea of a real partnership where everyone's equal and learning and working together? With
Yeah, I think if I may add, I think Kah Hui pointed out it's very important that we learn from each other. And actually, for me, the same story as Kah Hui, I realized I learned so much from the more junior women in the group. For example, like sometimes you assume that these are their challenge, but if you do listen to them, you realize that, what they think the challenge they are going through is not what I've been through. So you always ask, always inquire. That's very important. And and then I think but also sometimes they bring in really interesting insight as well. For example, sometimes we talk about why there's so little female in the game dev industry, and then we always talk about like the pipeline problem. There's not enough candidate in the pipeline. And then the more junior women would challenge us like, in our school there are like 50 in the engineering part. I mean, it's like female student already accountable for 50 of the population. So what is the excuse? So, like there are all these interesting stories, insights, the challenging parts. I think that everybody will grow and learn so much from a community like this.
100%, big mood with that one. So we're going to go through, we've got a few minutes left, so we're going to look through the questions that have gone into the chat. So Shweta, the first question is one I think we all want to know. How can we join the W coffee sessions? Maybe you can put something in the chat, a link, and if you're open to, the world crashing your coffee session. Excellent. Okay. The next question is from, and please excuse me if I mispronounce any names, but Tasita is asking, what would you say really draws people to an event besides just free food and drink?
If I may answer, is best the ambassador ourselves, yourself. I mean, people are here for you. And then it's up to us to keep this community very authentic. But then that can only comes from like your heart. You cannot pretend, you cannot, if you care enough, if you are ready to give back, people will feel it and they will enjoy and they will keep coming back. Yeah, I think there's so many times I doubt myself, like, why me? Why am I the person to rally people into this movement? But then because I care about it, I care about like making women in games visible to each other, but also visible for the industry. And then I will just always focus on this goal, and then just hopefully they benefit from it, and then they will come back, and then maybe the next time it's their turn to give back. So, yep.
Excellent. Anyone else want to?
I think one of the, I would say one of the attraction could be networking. I think this is related to the other question where I think Maria asked about how to gain access to the industry. I believe that students, when they are they have almost decided where they want to go to upon graduation, even in their freshman year, they should start reaching out and going for events like that where they can meet people. I could give you an example, same with the girl I spoke about that's in esports, because we attended an event online, streamed live. And after that, we said after the event, I spoke to her. She wanted to go for an esports event, but being female, she couldn't find sponsor for her team. And then she asked me, I said, okay, let's go. I have this events. If you're interested, you could, because some of the games that they're competing in came from major publishers that attend the same industry events as me. So I said, come and get to know people. And I tried to find sponsorship for her. At the same time, she's looking for a holiday job. So we did try to, besides me, there was another company. So we said, let's look at internship program for you. So she had, just by attending that one event with us, she got into, she got a lot of leads, and she managed to make friends, network further, because I introduced her to people. From those, she will get to know more people. So I believe that is a way of checking it out and making that kind of connection. And it is not only about gaining something in return, because even by talking to people, you learn. You learn to be more confident. You learn how to carry yourself when you go for an interview. You don't panic when you need to speak, like in this type of settings. And that comes with experience, comes with exposure. And women in games, I think, is a very safe environment. I feel very comfortable. Friday morning, I told them about it. People on my team play games until late at night, like 5 a.m. in the morning, they were still online, getting them to wake up at 9 a.m. and turn on the camera, looking presentable, and just talking and sharing their thoughts. It takes a lot from them. That means they really want to do it. And for us, no matter how small the group is, if that day we bring a smile to even one person, I think it's worth it.
100%. I so agree. Renata?
Well, I was gonna jump into something that Kah Hui was just pointing out, the advice we should give to women and girls trying to get into the gaming industry. As both of them mentioned, networking is a very important thing. And I was gonna go into Women Game Jam again. And not only us, but other game jams. Because I think about the importance of game jams and taking part in them. Even though sometimes you put so much work into it, you wait a little bit because you invest a lot of energy. You always win a lot of experience, because usually people are working outside of their comfort zone, or they're learning new skills. They are, for example, they're a programmer that decide to work as an artist, or the other way around. And you start to build a portfolio as well, something that other people will be able to look at and see your work, see your thoughts, or your design process, or what's the kind of way that you try to organize a project for it to happen in 2 days. Because sometimes when you are doing a personal project and you say, hey, I'm going to build a game for myself, you might lack the motivation to finish it. Because one thing about the games industry, that's way easier to start than to finish a project and say, okay, this is done, I can publish this is okay, it's fine, I'm satisfied with the result. While in the game jam, you don't really have time to all those polishes, and you really need to prioritize what really matters. Like, what's the core experience that I want to put into this game? And you having that time frame helps you learn how to use your skills, or creative skills, with constraints. And that's a very useful skill to use in the game industry as well. So I would say try to go into as many game jams as you can, because this way you will learn new people, you'll start to learn new tools, see what is being used in the market, you'll start to build a portfolio. I think all those things really matter.
Again, great advice. So we have a really involved question from Aisha, who's saying, I would really like to start organizing events locally, but I have zero experience and no idea where to start. What's the first thing I must do? I would say the first thing is to remember that everyone was in your position at one point. No one woke up with all of the experience. So that's my perspective. But Dan, what do you say?
I think, first of all, reach out to the women you know. For example, today you already have a good group of people who, if they share the same time zone, just invite them. And then also, do not afraid to invite several senior women into your group, because that really attract the others. And also, do not assume that they want something in return, because you always try very hard, what can I offer to them? You try to list out all the pros and cons for them to join. But then it's very important to know that for them, they really just want an opportunity to give back. If you ask, and if you set the environment right, they would want to be part of the conversation. So be brave and reach out and ask them to join. And then at the end of the day, that you have like a good mix of like women with a lot of experience or more junior women in the industry, and then there will be chemistry between them. Yeah, I think that's something that I wish I knew, is just do not assume that people don't want to engage. I mean, our nature is that we want to engage if it's right. So don't put so much stress on yourself and just starting small.
Renata, do you have anything that you would advice that you would offer to someone just starting out?
Yes, go to events, whether online ones or physical ones if your country allows it at the moment, because you will meet new people and you can invite these people to the event that you will be hosting. And as Dan said, people don't always want something in return. Maybe all they want is your presence and being able to hear your experience and share stories. So I think that the best way to start an event is by exposing yourself and getting out there and telling your story and being able to hear. Like, it's very important to actively listening to people and not just speaking, because that's when you'll learn the best and see what is it that you can offer in your event that will be of interest to people too.
Excellent.
I think if I had to point something, it would be that.
Kah, anything you want to add to that?
I think for me is to find something that people can relate to. Find a common topic, find a group of friends that you're closer. Start with a close group of friends and then expand out from their network, like-minded people that you can reach out to. Because whenever someone starts, it's always difficult when it's all strangers. You need to find a comfort, in your comfort zone, but you must expand it later on. So start with a small group of friends, gather, brainstorm ideas, do the first session, open it up a bit, maybe start with 3, became 8, something like that. And gradually you will get a hang of things, and then word spread, and then you just have many people turning up. For like our session now has that we need breakout rooms on Zoom so that we can have small group discussion, because the group has expanded to large a number.
I think that's something from speaking to you guys and listening to you guys now, that fear of you don't need to start big. If you're running an event, you don't need 100 people. Even if you just have 5 people, that's good. You start small and grow gradually. I think that's what I've taken from this, and it's been really useful. Now we are over time, but there's 4 more really great questions. If you guys are okay, we can carry on because it's just a break. So Mariah is asking, what are you seeing in the gaming industry in regards to women, girls having access to gaming jobs? And the second part we've kind of touched on. So what advice would you give to girls purposely trying to get into the game industry? And you were all accidental, but who wants to take that?
Just gonna answer the first part because they spoke about the second.
Mhm.
At least here in Brazil, we are seeing a shift in perspective from companies. For example, we look out for sponsors to Women Game Jam in order to be able to pay our speakers and hand out gifts to the girls that participate in the event. And what we have been learning is that companies are starting to look out to us and not the other way around. I don't think that's only because we're getting bigger, but mainly because companies are starting to realize that it's important to have different voices speaking. Because I see a shift in the market when sometimes some characters are, for example, it's an LGBT character, but it was developed by someone that's not LGBTQ, and the market will not see that well. Because people, maybe there will be some kind of misconception on the narrative or something that doesn't quite feel right. Because being a diverse person, it's good to note that those characters have also been done and created by someone that is diverse. So I think that companies are starting to look from those different backgrounds too. I think there's a shift happening.
There's a phrase that was told to me by the elder Morris Switzer, who's one of the First Nation elders in Canada. and it's the phrase "nothing about us without us." So don't make a game about us without us being involved in the process. Whatever the us, whether it's race, religion, sexuality, it doesn't matter. It's so important to have people that is dealing with involved in every step of the design, the development of every process. So nothing about us without us. It's kind of my logo or slogan now. Does anyone else want to add to what are you seeing in the gaming industry in regards to women or girls having access to gaming jobs?
I think the fact that so many of us joined the industry by accident, I reflected on it with one of my colleagues who was also has the same story, similar story about joining by accident. Our in the end we realized that at that point why we did not think about this industry as a possible career path, because there weren't a lot of visible role models.
Mm-hmm.
There may be women that only on several occasions when I met up with my clients or other publishers, they visited my office. Those that really cared, and usually it's the ladies that say, "Oh my God, you have more than 30% women in on your team." I said, "Oh, you realize that?" "Yeah, it's very noticeable to me." And she was so, yeah, that was someone from one of the Nordic countries. She worked in one of the companies in famous game company. And she realized that we consciously, try to make sure that we have a diverse team of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for any ladies who are looking to join such companies, look at all the diversity and inclusion initiatives on all these companies. See how they deal with it, how they are trying to do something within a company to transform the way they hire, they promote, or they move people into leadership position. I think those are the ones that you could seek possible career path. Because even for me, I'm a council member in Keyword Studios, Diversity and Inclusivity Council. We are thinking about unconscious bias training for managers,
Mm-hmm.
and we are thinking about how we can overcome all this making a level playing field for not only ladies but people of diverse gender, people maybe non-binary, LGBTQ, as Renata just mentioned. So these are companies that are really making an effort, and I think they will have a more positive environment for you to grow your career in.
100% again. Yeah. And then
Yep. I would like to add that it's very important to get the foot in the door to begin with. I mean, first of all, when we talk about joining game industry, our mind go immediately into like game design or esports, like the very core part of the game companies. But then at the end of the day, a company is big, right? They have like HR, they have finance, they have events, they have, I don't know, merchandise. Basically, I mean, they have a broad spectrum of jobs. For example, my very first job with Riot Games is that I'm an executive assistant. I don't have a lot of gaming experience, but then you get your foot in the door, and then if you show your potential, and then all the paths will open for you. And also, when you talk about game company, they are not only one type of game company. They're like AAA studio, they're indie, they're all type of them. Just start somewhere. Starting from a job that might not be like the optimal job you want to do, but then doing something close to what you want to do in the future is always a step forward. Like even like if you cannot run a game industry, like how about something creative? So that would get you there eventually.
Absolutely, I so agree. And it's that idea that maybe you won't get your full time dream job, but you might get a short term contract. And if you do well in that, then there might be more work or it might get extended. So, yeah, if you could take these chances, because they don't always come round again. So, Emma is asking a question, and I'm not sure you guys would be able to answer it. It might be something you can think about, though. Is there a central place or set of places where coffee mornings and events are published so we can see what's coming up and publicize our own events?
Don't think so. I think that's why Dan built our own website and LinkedIn page. Yeah.
So
Because
that
we
tells us that we need that to be made then, that there should be this. So someone go ahead and make that and then let us all know.
Well, maybe it's like the Women in Games Discord server. That's what you're trying to build. That's how I see it, at least, to try to create a community with everyone from everywhere, and maybe try to do a centralized hub like the events channel, so people can get up to date. It can be a little bit overwhelming because of the amount of information. Because Discord is not as user friendly. I think they could use a UX helper. But especially if you're new to it. But I think
all of the lists of every single channel can be quite confusing sometimes. But and then you've got so many different Discords as well. But yeah, I think that exactly the Women in Games Discord, Women in Games Esports Discord are both there to be used for announcements, for general information, so you can use those for socializing. So, and also reach out to Women in Games, and we might be able to help. If you're thinking, if you're an ambassador and you're thinking of events, then definitely you should be putting it through Women in Games Discords, the website, and we'll help you as much as we possibly can. So moving on to Alex Boardman's first question. From these events that you've been running, what are the biggest barriers and blockers to getting more women into the video games industry? Excellent question.
Okay. Do you want? I'm gonna say that. Sorry, I don't know if I got it. Did I?
Nope. Go on.
Is that at least the women that I know, most of them have been afraid, or they lack confidence, or that are necessary to work in the games industry. And it's pretty much as Dan mentioned. I think that sometimes people don't have the exact vision of how broad the game industry is, of the number of opportunities and areas that you can work with in the industry. Like a lot of people that come up to me ask me, do you code? And people think that doing games is coding. Actually, no, I can barely write a single line of code. I can work myself around Git, but that's pretty much it. And I think this is one of the biggest barriers I usually face. It's teaching people how broad it can be, and that all set of skills can be used within the industry. And not only knowing math or knowing how to draw, or having played a bunch of different games in the past to have a very solid background in game design. There's very different angles that they can tag.
Excellent. Kah, what about you?
I think especially in the context for Asia, we face more challenges. I think there is the part about cultural attitudes. Generally, I see women who are brave enough to be, either they are, very strong characters, like they really defy what their parents think is a good career path for women, or they have very supportive parents that look beyond genders and are okay with them pursuing a career in the creative industry. Because in Asia, it's all about being doctors, being, the very traditional way of considered good and stable. Is definitely not viewed positively among Asian parents most of the time. And I think now I see more women entering the industry, but we lose a lot of them once they have families. I know among the partners that I work with, especially in China as a market, a lot of them, once they go on maternity leave, they never return. Yes, there will be a new lady, and then when a person gets married, and I've been through maybe 3 generations of my POCs, because they all got married and they have children. And the demanding nature of the industry, they will be hinted by their supervisor to get yourselves out of the team because you can't contribute. You cannot work 6 days, at least 6 days a week. You can't work more than 12 hours. So it's better that you don't take up my head count. So they have been hinted politely to, get themselves out there. So I see a lot of women that at that stage where we should be going to mid-career, they had to give up their career for family. Sometimes it's also a unbalanced caregiving responsibility, like aging parents, even if they don't have young children. So I see losing more people at the stage where they should be becoming women leaders. That is the part that hurts me even more.
Yeah, brilliant answer. So we're gonna go to Florencia's question here, which is quite an interesting one. I think Renata, you possibly have an answer to this. Have you collaborated with local governments for any of these activities, so like your events?
Actually, I got a bit of a strange answer for this one. We did. However, in the past, we have had to cut stuff out of our videos because of this, because we were saying something publicly that the government did not agree with. And from that moment on, we decided we were not going to work with government anymore. We decided to go and get our money for whatever we need from companies. Because usually companies are not afraid or don't mind taking stance about things that are agreeing with the whatever movement that the world is making. So it might be wrong for the government to be a feminist, but it might be good for a company to be a feminist. So in this case, that's where we're aiming to go. But we, at least here at Women Game Jam, we have gone through some editals to grab money from the government. But usually it's a way more long and bureaucratic process. So I wouldn't say it to be the first place that you should go look for some kind of perks and advantage, because there's a lot of steps to go through.
A lot of red tape. Dan, you're nodding away there, so you've seem to have had some experience in this area.
I think at the moment we really focus on what we have at the moment, because like all of us have a day job. If we overstretch, we will get burned out very quickly. So I think it's good to have reasonable or realistic goal to begin with. But then at the end of the day, it depends on your goal. Then you can, of course, like look for collaboration. For example, that in July, we're going to work with Singapore Gaming Association, and then we're going to have a virtual booth, and then we're going to do similar panels and try to recruit more women into our community. And then also look into, basically a bit, if your goal is to attract more students, for example, then of course I work with university, work on the talks and open up all kind of opportunity for them. So yeah, we do have big plans, but baby steps so far.
Yeah.
And Kah, what do you say to this?
As Dan mentioned, we are going to work with the Singapore Games Association. So they are the primary trade association for the Singapore games industry and the esports industry. And from behind SGGA, there is the Singapore Media Authority. So I've spoken to them before. Singapore local government, they want to grow the creative industry. So they do provide venue. Okay, pre-COVID, we already discussed the plan, but we couldn't put it in action. They will provide the refreshment, so the food and drinks will be taken care of. They provide the venue. They will ask, the people that will be interested in the contents that we are going to present to turn up for the talk. And then they will just pay for everything else. Have produced the content and just organize the event. So they do have this kind of initiative to help indies or anyone, or even fresh graduates or people that are in this incubator program where they develop a game over a period of a few weeks and then try to publish it, so that people can know more about the different aspects of games right now, to marketing, community management, and all the other than programming and art, the usual things, the whole ecosystem that surrounds a game release. So this is an initiative that the government does, and we do, in the past, they do some of the events this way, but then they have been put on hold for 2 years. I hope that post-COVID, we will finally get to do it.
Fingers crossed for that. That sounds like an amazing initiative. And so we're on the last question for now. And I'm not in industry. I'm an educator and a games researcher in my day job. So this is particularly pertinent from my perspective. Do you think more needs to be done as school grassroots level to make it an aspiration industry for women to go into? And how do we, and I'm going to add to that, Alex, how do we get this kind of education into schools or in grassroots levels? Dan, I'm going to pick on you because you smiled first.
Yeah, I don't think I'm very equipped to answer this question because I think it needs to be done in every single level. I mean, we need to attract more women, but then, as Kah Hui mentioned, we also need to retain them. And then it's on, of course, on the school, on the company, and then eventually on the people who are willing to take a leap of faith. Yeah, I don't think I have a very quick answer. I think what I can say is doing everything within our own control and just keep driving it.
Excellent. And Kah, you laughed next, so it's on to you next.
Well, I think as much as possible, if the company do recognize women talents at a point in their personal life where they need to have reduced work hours, the company should, as much as possible, if the business allows it, allow them to have 3-day work week, of course, with corresponding pay structure, whatever, because you don't totally lose them. They will still be part of the company. And this also allow the women to continue to rescale themselves and, not have gaps in their employment such that they get detached from the industry and then we lose them as a talent.
Mm-hmm.
In my company, I work with a great ops manager. She works only 3 days a week. She gets more, I can't swear, right? She gets more done in 3 days than people does in 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
And she's awesome to work with. So when I see real life examples like that, I think if as much as possible, when company slowly change the way they think, it's not about only the long number of hours that you clock at your job or sit in front of a screen. You can look at people contributing at the levels they're comfortable with and then keep them in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Because women picks up half of the workforce. We can impact any GDP easily if you want to talk economic terms.
No, 100%. And we have to remember that just because you're sat in front of your computer screen for 12 hours doesn't mean you've been productive for 12 hours. You could have been staring at the wall for 11 and a half of those hours. You just don't know. Renata, do you have anything to add to our final question?
Well, first, I'd like to say that last year, when Bolivia joined Women Game Jam, they decided to do something that we did not do before. They did a version of Women Game Jam for kids. Mm-hmm. So it was a bit separate from the main event because we were afraid of little girls entering the server with a lot of mature women, and we could not control whatever is being posted on the server, and it's something that's not safe for work to be shown because we don't have any power about what people are posting. But I'm gonna post a video in here if you want to watch it sometime or just take a look. The girls are very happy about it. They were like between 8 and 13, mm-hmm. and they were super excited with the games they were creating. And I definitely believe that schools need to step up about this. Like when I was in school, okay, that was more than 10 years ago, but I've never even heard the possibility of having like a games job position because all the jobs that they spoke about were like traditional ones. Mm-hmm. Like being a lawyer or being a doctor or being an engineer or things more related to those fields. And I think it would be really nice in like if schools also put some kind of effort into calling people from more diverse areas and say, hey, do you want to come and speak to my students about this? And show a role model and show a woman working in an industry that it's not even like, maybe it's not even a dream because they don't even see it happening in our country because mm-hmm. games industry, it's new in Brazil somehow. Like our oldest companies have 10 years. And when you go, for example, to Japan, go watch Nintendo. Nintendo is like 100 years old. There's a huge difference in that. So that's something I think it would be really nice. Like if schools also did that, because I think one of the things that it's about the pipeline, as you mentioned. girls don't know they can do it, so they don't even apply to it. And therefore, it's even harder to get them. Companies have to put more effort into going and finding them wherever they are and helping them switch careers and doing that leap of faith. So if you can push people forward and show them, like, hey, this is a possibility. Do you want to see more about it?
And I think the point that you touched on there, and all of you kind of touched on, is about role models. And I think everyone watching this aware that you are all role models, and that's what the ambassador program is about. And it doesn't mean you have to walk down the street holding a banner and, you know, trying to solve crime or anything like that, but you're there to be the girl or the ally that people will look up to, that people will ask questions of. And that's what the ambassador program is about. And the more ambassadors we have, the more connections like this that we make, the more the word is spreading. And I think really important is when you make it and when you become successful, make sure you're reaching back to help the others coming up behind you. Just amazing. Thank you all so much. And thank you so much for your extra half hour of time to answer the questions. But the questions were too good and people were still in, and I just didn't want to, you know, to let people down, but thank you. And the best comment so far, I think, came from Mariah, which was just all the clicks. So love that. Thank you very, very much. And we'll see you on the other side.